Welcome to this week's Stampin' Fun Friday. This is Tacoma Work, and this week I have a Papertrey ink friendship jar and friendship jar fillers card to share with you. The first thing I did was stamp the jar on a 4 by 5 1/4 piece of white smooth cardstock. This is the Nina cardstock, and it's one of the recommended cardstocks for Copic coloring. So I'm just kind of making sure everything's going to fit. Then I'm going to ink up the jar outline with some Memento Tuxedo Black ink, another recommended ink for Copic coloring, and stamp that on my card base there. Then I'm going to take the florals, and this is from the fillers set that coordinates with the friendship jar set, and I'm going to ink it up with the Memento Tuxedo Black ink and stamp that right inside that little that little jar there. Just going to turn it on its end. I want to make sure those leaves do not overlap the top of the jar any. And there you go. Perfect. I'm going to give that a quick wipe off with a baby wipe. Clean those up real fast. The next thing I did was these are part of the friendship jar set, and that solid set kind of resembles water in the jar. So I'm going to add that stamp to an acrylic block and take some Hero Arts Soft Pool Shadow ink, line it up, and stamp that right inside my jar. So it looks like my flowers are in a little mason jar with water. And then I apologize, I thought that I stamped videotaped the steps for applying that text background, and I forgot. So I'm just adding my Copic coloring here. But how I added that text background is I stamped it with the Hero Arts Friend Definition Cling background stamp using the Stampin' Up! Soft Suede ink. Then I applied some antique linen over the entire background. And I did that so that my paper kind of looked like vintage book print. You could also actually use pages maybe out of an old vintage book. But I didn't have any, so I created my own. For the stems there in the jar, where the stems go below the water line, I colored those with a little lighter shade of green, just because that part of the flower stem would be distorted and wouldn't be quite as bright as what isn't in the water. So kind of keep those things in mind when you're coloring with your Copic markers. And I didn't use a lot of colors here. I just used about 4 shades of green for the stems and the leaves, and then I think 3 shades for the flowers, and maybe a 4th there with the brown to kind of give the center of the little daisies a little bit of dimension. And all yellows, very muted colors. I wanted this to be kind of soft and maybe even look a little bit more like fall. So I'm blending all those colors together really good. I also added some warm grays to the jar just to give it a little bit more shading and interest. Continue to kind of work in those yellows and make sure everything looks really nice and blended together. And now I'm just going back with just a little bit more. Adding a little bit more gray up at the top of my jar. And that looks good. The next thing I'm going to do is take an edge distressor and distress the edge of this whole piece. Just rough it up really good. You could also take the edge of your scissors and do the same thing. I wanted this to have a real vintage look to it. I like vintage, but not like over the top, because of course the flowers and everything still are pretty graphic, so I like to combine those looks. I'm adding a little vintage photo distress ink right to where I've distressed that, and anywhere you've distressed will pick up even more of that color, so it'll really darken that. I really like how these flowers look. There's just so many options with these friendship jar and fall fillers, or not fall fillers rather, but the regular fillers. Now I'm going to take my Sizzix Big Shot, and they have a whole bunch of dies that coordinate with this stamp set. They have the jar and all the jar toppers, but for my card today, all I need is the little jar label, and it's a teeny tiny little die. I'm going to lay that on my multi-purpose platform, lay my paper over it, and then sandwich it with both of the clear acrylic cutting mats for the Big Shot and run it through my machine. And you can see, easy as that, I have a cute little label. So I'm going to move this all out of the way so that we can stamp the label for the card. And that'll look really cute right there. So I'm going to take one of the greetings from the set that says "My Friend," and I'm going to stamp that with the Stampin' Up! Soft Suede ink. It's a really nice brown color. I'm going to stamp that right in the center of my little label. And I didn't get it in the video here, but I did go ahead and add, there's a little frame for the label as well. I tied some Simply Chartreuse satin ribbon from Papertrey ink around my card piece there, and I'm adding a little antique linen ink to my jar label. I want it to match the rest of the card, and it needs a little vintage photo too, so I'm just going to carefully go around the edges and add a little vintage photo. And that looks cute. Perfect. I'm going to take a couple of foam adhesive dots and adhere that right over the ribbon next to my bow. Probably need a little adhesive back there. Hold that in place. Once I have that all put together, I'm ready to add my card or my stamped piece to my card base. And I'm just using a daffodil colored note card from Hero Arts. It's a really nice yellow color. I really like that. I'm just kind of distressing the edges just a little bit more. Get my ribbon all lined up, make sure everything looks good. I'm going to take my tiny attacher before I adhere that and just secure the ribbon on both sides. That way I don't have to worry about it coming loose in the mail. Now I'll take some adhesive and just run that along the back, make sure it stays real good, and adhere it right to my card. I thought the center of the flowers needed just a little bit of glitter, so I took the Copic Spica glitter pins and added just a tiny bit of glitter pin. And I added a button also to the center of that ribbon. For the inside of the card, I wanted to add just a little something, so I'm taking some soft brown Hero Arts shadow ink and inking up that same floral design I used on the front of the card. I'm going to stamp it off the edge there, just in the inside of the card. And again, these shadow inks, when they dry a lot nicer than they stamp originally. They look a little blotchy at first. Then I'm going to take some of one of these signature greeting stamps from, this is also a Papertrey ink stamp set, and I am going to stamp this right inside, "I'm so grateful for you," right inside my card using soft suede Stampin' Up! Ink. And you can see that just finishes off the card perfectly. For more information, please visit my blog at www.nicolemcgurk.typepad.com on September 18th. Thanks for watching.